Hi diddly ho, neighborinos, and welcome into episode 2 of Sunday Best with Jay Felicio. I'm your host, Jay Felicio, and gotta say it was quite an interesting week 2 as well. There was just a little bit more scoring. A couple of offenses bounced back in quite a big way. We had some big injuries, unfortunately, but let's go ahead and jump right into this. And before I do, I just want to, again, explain what the format of the show is going to be. Looking in around 15 to 20 minutes. Not going to hit every game. I'm not going to hit every player. I picked a couple of games that had some of the biggest storylines from a fantasy perspective on the day to go a little bit more in detail on and hit more players. After that, I'll do some quick hitters, touch on individual players. Towards the end, I'll hit on those injuries. Unfortunately, right before I started recording, we got news that stud quarterback is possibly out for multiple months. Not weeks, months, but we'll get to that towards the end. This week was a good reminder that fantasy football is a weekly game. You can't get caught up in whether it be good performances, bad performances. You've got to be able to sift through what's real, what's not. There's extremes, there's outliers, weekly, monthly, yearly, but that's what we're here for. Week 2 was the week of bounce back offenses. Week 1, the Lions, Patriots, Giants, and Dolphins scored a combined 40 points. In week 2, those same 4 teams scored a combined 149 points. So yeah, I'd say there was a bounce back from a NFL standpoint as well as a fantasy standpoint for multiple guys. I owe the Detroit Lions an apology. I owe our editor-in-chief, Christian Ottoman, an apology. The Detroit Lions offense looked just fine today. Honestly, they looked way better than fine. Jared Goff, 334 passing yards, 5 touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 9 catches, 115 yards, caught 3 of those touchdowns. Jameson Williams did Jameson Williams things. 2 catches, 108 yards, 1 touchdown, averaged a nice, clean 54 yards per catch. And it was nice to see somewhat of a bounce back for David Montgomery. His stat line was pretty close to last week, but 11 carries, 57 yards, and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs did Jahmyr Gibbs things. He scored nearly 20 fantasy points. He's honestly the only fantasy asset on the Lions that week in, week out, no matter what the matchup, no matter what the offense looks like, I'm not worried about him putting up fantasy points. The other guys, Amon-Ra St. Brown is pretty close to that, but I do worry in a week like last week if the volume's not quite there. Last week's implosion for the Detroit offense was a combination of a couple of different things. Jared Goff traditionally hasn't played well in Lambeau Field. He's only thrown 4 combined touchdowns over his last 4 starts. All 4 of those starts were under 250 passing yards. And the Packers defense is just really good. And, they added some guy named Micah Parsons. Think he's decent. Sorry, Jerry. I really think that had a lot to do with it as well. We saw them play well against the Washington Commanders on Thursday night. I think the Lions offense still has that same upside that they've had over the past couple of seasons, but I am still concerned about their floor. I don't think they're going to be as consistent. We saw it last week. Granted, like I said, it was a 1-week thing, so there's still the verdict's still out, but I'm still not convinced that they're going to be a week in, week out offense that you can depend on like they have been in the past couple of seasons. I think that ceiling's still there, but I think the floor has potential to be a lot lower than we want. On the Bears side of the ball, there could be a changing of the guard at wide receiver 1 for the Chicago Bears. Rome Odunze, he had a career day, 7 catches on 11 targets, 128 yards, 2 tutties. DJ Moore had 5 catches on 6 targets for only 46 yards. He only had 1 more target than Olamide Zaccheaus. Kind of scary. Through 2 weeks, DJ Moore is actually being out-targeted by Zaccheaus. Rome Odunze has 20 targets in that same time frame. Seems to be operating as the Bears wide receiver 1, and if this volume continues for him, he's going to be a wide receiver 2 with a pretty safe floor, and he's going to have spike weeks jumping into that wide receiver 1 category. Similar to last week, Caleb Williams had an up and down performance. He started off really good. He threw 2 touchdowns. Pretty much it was almost a carbon copy of last week. Looked good early, not so much in the second half, but I've seen enough. I'm excited with the flashes that I've seen that I do think that the upside is still there for Caleb Williams to finish as a top 10 fantasy quarterback. I believe that Ben Johnson still can fix him. fix him, whatever you want to call it. He's a must start in Superflex, and he's probably starting most weeks in one or quarterback leagues as well. You're likely starting all your Bears in week 3 because they're going up against a Dallas Cowboys team that gave up over 400 yards passing to one Mr. Russell Wilson. And just like everybody predicted, the Giants and the Cowboys was the highest scoring game on the week. Is it time to welcome back Mr. Unlimited? Not quite. Don't get too excited. And I will say, it was nice to see the Giants offense not look like a dead fish with its head cut off, but let's slow down there just a little bit. Where was this Giants offense last week? If you read my week 2 start-sit column, you may have noticed a joke that kind of backfired. I had Russell Wilson as a start, jokingly, and I wrote, just seeing if you're paying attention, there's a better chance that Russell Wilson is benched at halftime than putting up a top 12 performance. Do not, under any circumstances, start Russell Wilson in fantasy football, even in Russell Wilson only formats. Yeah, that was wrong. Russell Wilson wound up throwing for 450 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Russell Wilson's first half yardage was the most for any Giants quarterback since 2018, since 2-time Super Bowl MVP, future Hall of Famer Eli Manning. Malik Neighbors, that guy's good. And this was honestly the best thing to come out of this game was Russell Wilson's ability to throw the deep ball. They connected on a Hail Mary with 30 seconds left to score go-ahead touchdown, which they still wound up losing in overtime. I don't need to tell you that Malik Neighbors is good, but Wan'Dale Robinson, for the second week in a row, Wan'Dale Robinson had a role in this offense. 6 targets, 5 receptions for 142 yards, and a touchdown. The Giants' offense looked infinitely better than it did last week, and honestly, it had not been for penalties, they could have won this game in regulation and not lost it in overtime. I honestly don't know what to make of Russell Wilson. I think most of us were ready to write him off after that abysmal performance last week and ready to see the Giants throw in Jackson Dart, who did come in for a play for negative yardage because he slipped. Wilson showed some flashes of his old self, but he's had some bonehead plays that we've seen more and more of over the past few seasons. It's going to be a long time before I'm ready to start him in 1 QB, but it's definitely worth keeping an eye on for Superflex. The biggest takeaway from Russell Wilson's big day is nothing to worry about with Malik Neighbors. Wan'Dale Robinson probably jumps somewhere into borderline wide receiver 3 flex value as long as he's seeing this much volume. Giants running back situation definitely got a little muddier after this week. For some reason, Devin Singletary started over Tyrone Tracy and then winds up getting 2 touches for a net 0 yards. Tracy did get 10 combined attempts and targets, 5 carries for 15 yards, 4 catches on 5 targets for a whopping 36 receiving yards. But the rookie, Cam Scatterbo, 14 combined attempts and targets, 11 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown. Also got 3 targets and 2 catches. Most importantly, he got all 5 of the Giants' red zone rush attempts. I said from the get-go, I thought he was going to take over this backfield. The hamstring injury in the preseason definitely slowed things down just a little bit. It's only a matter of time. This quote-unquote start from Singletary has nothing to do with Singletary. It's more concerning for Tyrone Tracy with that, as well as Tracy was returning kicks in this game. Because of the targets that he saw, 5 targets, you can't complain. Borderline flex at best in PPR, but Cam Scatterbo's coming for his job. Scatterbo is definitely the guy that would fistfight a grizzly bear just for the fun of it. The Cowboys' passing attack definitely looked better than it did last week. Dak Prescott, 38 of 52, 361 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Struggled just a bit in the first 3 quarters. Now, the Giants definitely got a lot of pressure on them. They got 3 sacks, looked much better than they did last week. Going into the 4th quarter, Dak Prescott only had 174 passing yards and 1 touchdown. But the man has ice in his veins. 4th quarter and overtime, 15 for 20, 187 yards, and a touchdown. You don't need me to tell you that CD Lamb is good. 9 catches, 13 targets, 112 yards. It was nice to see George Pickens, 9 targets, 5 receptions, 68 yards, and a touchdown. One thing I will say, Dak looked good overall, but I still feel like even with George Pickens and CD Lamb, he's a better real-life quarterback than he is for fantasy. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that he's not good in fantasy, but I don't feel like he has that top 5 upside that some people think that he does just because he has Lamb and Pickens. It was definitely encouraging to see 9 targets for George Pickens, but Dak isn't going to throw the ball 52 times each week, so his value pretty much remains unchanged. But Javonte Williams, yeah, his value changed just a little bit this week. 18 attempts, 97 yards, and a touchdown. 7 targets, 6 catches for an additional 33 yards. I wasn't impressed with Javonte Williams last week. He had 3.6 yards per carry, and he did have 2 touchdowns, but he just didn't look like his pre-injury self. He did this week. A 30-yard touchdown run in the third. He's played over 70 snaps in both games so far this season for the Cowboys. 43 combined attempts and targets and 3 touchdowns. Rico Dowdle had 2 total touchdowns last year. Javonte Williams is locked in as an RB2. We're going to head over to Seattle and talk about 2 running backs that caused quite a few conversations over the past week. Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Ken Walker truthers, we're back, baby. Kenneth Walker had 13 carries for 105 yards, chipped in a catch for 13 yards. Charbonnet did outcarry him by 2, but the difference is Walker got 105 yards. Charbonnet only ran for 10, so not that great yards per carry. Charbonnet out-carrying Walker does still show me that Charbonnet is going to be involved in this offense more than I think most of us anticipated coming into the season, but Walker is back into the conversation as an RB1. I still think he's a dark horse to finish as the RB1 this season. It does look like that week 1 usage may have had something to do with the preseason foot injury. Charbonnet is a dangerous start, but I think you're still able to start him as a flex because he will be involved in this offense. Sam Darnold looked a heck of a lot better than he did in week 1. 295 passing yards for 2 touchdowns. Did throw 2 picks. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 10 targets, 8 catches, 103 yards. Cooper Kupp came back to life. 9 targets, 7 catches for 90 yards. And the rookie Torrey Horton, 2 catches on 4 targets for 32 yards and a touchdown. Honestly, the takeaways from this is Darnold looked better, but I am still avoiding starting him, even in Superflex leagues. JSN is locked in as a volume-based wide receiver too. It was nice to see Kupp get triple the targets that he saw in week 1, but still not ready to trust him yet. I want to see it on a more consistent basis. While I do like the upside of Horton, he's still just a stash. And a quarterback that went in the opposite direction, don't think really that many people are surprised. I'm going to stop short of calling last week a fluke for Aaron Rodgers, but this is more of what we expected to see from him this season. 18 for 33, 203 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. DK Metcalf made a redonkulous catch for touchdown. 3 catches, only had 20 yards to go along with that touchdown, though. And like I said last week, Jonnu Smith, yeah, he got 4 targets, 4 catches, 27 yards. You're not considering any other pass catcher on the Steelers outside of DK Metcalf, and honestly, he's nothing more than a boom-bust wide receiver 3 at this point. This was the concern with Aaron Rodgers after last week. He's going to have some big weeks, but you can't trust him in any format. Maybe you're starting him in Superflex if you lost a quarterback this weekend, because quite a few people did. But I'm avoiding him if possible. As for the Steelers running backs, volume was pretty much what we expected. 14 carries for Jaylen Warren, 4 catches of 4 targets for 86 yards. Gainwell had 5 carries for 20 yards, 5 targets. Caleb Johnson had 1 carry for 1 yard, but quite possibly the biggest bonehead play that will happen this season, even though it's just week 2. Cost the Steelers a touchdown on a kickoff. Caleb Johnson is droppable in all formats. It's still somebody that maybe could turn on something on towards the end of the season, but he shouldn't be on the fantasy radar. Jaylen Warren did get the volume, but once again, he was inefficient on the ground, and he got 65 of his 86 receiving yards on one, albeit incredible play, but the inefficiency scares me, and Warren's a running back too based on volume, but I could definitely see the Steelers running back situation being really annoying, especially with Arthur Smith calling the plays. I think Kenneth Gainwell is gonna continue to be a thorn in Jaylen Warren's side, and it's honestly a situation I really just want to avoid. It's time for a couple of quick hitters, and then we'll talk about some injuries before I get out of here. Brian Thomas Jr. disappoints once again. He's yet to break 10 points, but he does have 19 targets through the first 2 games. His total just 5 receptions for 60 yards. I know there was concern that going over the middle, he stopped short and was worried about getting hit. He's going to be just fine. I'm not worried about Brian Thomas Jr. Quinshon Judkins for the Browns. What we saw today is why I was excited about him, why I was willing to stash him and take the risk. No training camp. Just signed, I believe, last week. 10 carries for 61 yards, 3 catches. He's going to be the guy in this backfield. And the way that Joe Flacco looked today, they're going to lean on the run. Within a week or two, Judkins is going to be locked in as an RB2, and he still has top 10 upside. Zay Flowers is still the guy for Lamar Jackson, even though he didn't come down with a touchdown this week. 11 targets, 7 catches, 75 yards. Some random creative players from Madden is who caught the touchdowns this week. I don't know why. It's Lamar Jackson. He could throw touchdowns to anybody, but I'm not worried about Zay Flowers. I still think he's a rock-solid wide receiver, too, that's going to have some spike weeks. James Cook went off. 21 carries, 132 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. It was his 23rd career game with 2+ touchdowns in the first half. Locked in as a running back 1. Even though Chris Olave is getting the volume, he has 23 targets through 2 games. He's not doing anything with it. And obviously a lot of that has to do with Spencer Rattler, who somehow threw for 3 touchdowns today. And Chris Olave didn't get a single one. As much as I love Olave, and I think he was a value coming into the season, he's nothing more than a volume-based wide receiver 3 at this point. While Travis Etienne is the running back 1 in Jacksonville, Bhayshul Tuten looked good. On unlimited touches, 8 carries for 42 yards, 2 catches for 32 yards, and he juked a man out of his soul for his first career touchdown. It was a receiving touchdown. Somebody to keep an eye on. If he continues to get 10 or so touches, he's got some flex viability, and were ETN to go down, he would likely step into the role as a running back 1 and would instantly jump into RB2 consideration. Now, there's 2 injuries that I do want to touch on before I get out of here. Joe Burrow is believed to have suffered turf toe with torn ligaments, left the stadium on crutches. Jake Browning has proved that he's a capable backup and he can keep this offense moving. I don't think you have to drop the ceilings of Higgins and Chase as much as you would think initially. Browning isn't somebody that I'd consider outside of Superflex League if you're desperate. Justin Fields suffered a concussion and is likely out next week. We really don't have a timeline because concussions are impossible to predict and different for every person. Tyrod Taylor came in through a touchdown in relief. Fields didn't look good even before that. He was 3 for 11 with 27 yards, 49 rushing yards, fumbled twice, lost 1. When Fields comes back, I still like him. I still think he has that upside based on his rushing. I don't think that Garrett Wilson's value really drops that much because Taylor, although he's not quite as good of a fantasy asset as Fields, he can throw the ball better, to be honest with you. Taylor being a better passer should offset any sort of dip that Garrett Wilson is going to see. And that's going to do it for week 2 of Sunday Best. I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at GManJ. You can find all my work at QBList.com. And if you want something a little more in-depth than this quick hitter of a show, every Monday morning, head on over to QBList.com. Check out our What We Saw series. We have an incredible team led by Brett Ford that literally watches every single game and gives you everything you need to know from a fantasy perspective. I will be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Everybody out there, don't forget, choose love over hate.